Hi everyone, I'm James. Welcome to this session. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes and let people join, but please feel free to use the chat function, introduce yourselves, what service you offer. Are you a translator? Are you an interpreter? Are you something else? Language learner? What languages you speak? Anything like that. It would just be interesting to see who's joining this session. And in a couple of minutes, we'll get going. So for anyone who's just joining, we'll get started in a minute or two. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Um, I hope I know it's just starting today and there's only been a few sessions so far this morning, but I hope everyone's having a great language show so far. I've been involved with the language show for the past 6 or 7 years. So it's always really nice to take part. And this is my first year hosting a webinar. So I'm looking forward to it. I see Becky's just joined. Hi, Becky. Um, Lots of people signing in. I know it's always a bit of a dash from one session to another. Oh, hi, Alison. German into Norwegian into English. Nice. Someone from Budapest. Lovely. Yeah, I really enjoy the language show because you just get so many people from different places. It's always a really kind of fun, interactive event and kind of chatting to different people. So it's yeah, really great. Hi, Clarice. Hi, Emily. I'm not going to say hi to everyone who's joined the session, but I hope everyone's having a great morning so far. And I kind of looked at the speaker sessions over the 3 days, and there's like lots of interesting content. And I'm kind of looking forward to sneaking into a few sessions myself. Okay, so I will get started in 1 second. I will just load up my PowerPoint. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. Um, so today's session is about marketing yourself as a translator and also about expanding into other services. So I'll talk in a sec about some of the things I'm going to cover in this session today. But I wanted to introduce myself first and just give you a little bit of background about myself. Um, so I originally studied um, translation and interpreting at UEA. So with French and German, went back to France for a year, and then went and did my MA in applied translation at London Met. And one of the reasons I picked that course was because they had a internship module where you would go into an actual agency, like a language service provider, for 3 months, which was more unusual at the time. And I thought it would be really valid experience to progress towards being kind of a freelancer. And that was at TransPerfect in 2007. A year later, my job came up and I've been there full time ever since. So I've just celebrated 15 years with the company. So I'm not actually a translator now myself. I've been in the vendor management world. So that's basically like the freelance recruitment team. So I ran the kind of the translation side for a number of years. So all the different verticals, so like life sciences, technical, legal, patents, marketing, subtitling. And now in the past few years, I've been more on the media side, so kind of transcription, voiceover, um, audio description, accessibility services, things like that. Um, so it's exciting change, and I have a lot of experience on kind of both sides of being a student, being a linguist, trying to find linguists. So I kind of want to share that experience today to kind of help people be able to market themselves as best as possible, but also to maybe consider some other different related services beyond translation and interpreting, which are probably the two biggest, to kind of vary kind of the types of projects you can work on, which could be kind of more enriching for you, but also these are also different ways as a freelancer that you can earn money on projects and fill your time if you have gaps in your time. And I know especially when you're starting out, building a portfolio of clients, building up a regular pool of work, this is potentially another way to kind of help that as well. So as we go through the workshop today, please feel free to pop questions as you think of them into the Q&A section. That might be a bit easier than the chat, just so I can see specific questions. And then if you have other comments and stuff, you can kind of add that in the chat as we go through. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and I'll try and answer kind of as many of people's questions as possible. Okay, so I'll just have a little sip of water here. So when you're kind of looking at marketing yourself as a linguist and as a freelancer, there are kind of various options you can consider. So there are free ones, and then obviously you will have seen on sites like Pros, different things, you have paid options. So when you're looking to market yourself, really consider like the ROI of, is something adding value if you're paying for it versus just going for a free option. And particularly when you're starting out, in terms of like having a profile on an industry directory such as Pros or Translators Cafe, a free profile is absolutely fine as long as you actually put information on there that's going to help potential clients find you. It doesn't really make any difference to us on our side necessarily of the information on the profiles is the same whether you've paid or not. The only difference is maybe on like how high up you come up in searches. But if I'm looking for someone, I'm very specific in my initial searches, and then I work outwards and kind of generalize my search a little bit more if I can't find exactly what I'm looking for. So if you have a well-infoed profile that makes it easy for people like me to find you, that can kind of offset having to have a paid profile. So there's lots of different options out there in terms of like how you can market yourself. So obviously the most obvious one that you will all have already is your CV. I'm going to be talking about CVs in a little bit and about how best to kind of use that tool. And it is one of the best tools that you have. It's free. You can update it really easily. You can send it around easily. So CV is probably the number one most important one to have. You have all the different free industry directories. So Pros, Translators Cafe, there are different ones in each country designed so that linguists can market themselves either with a free profile or a paid profile. If you're just starting out, then your Uni Careers website might be an option, and having a profile on there and being able to find opportunities. LinkedIn is like really huge now. And a lot of companies like TransPerfect, they will have a full access account. So they don't rely on connections. We can see every single person who's on LinkedIn. So having a really strong LinkedIn profile is also really important now. There are other non-industry job directories, so things like Monster, Indeed, things like that you might be on. Other three options are kind of like direct contact, so emailing, filling out web applications, and that's going to involve research, looking for potential direct clients, language service providers who are looking for freelancers. And I'm going to be talking about researching clients as well. You've probably seen there are various different kind of micro gig economy websites, so things like Fiverr and Upwork. So they may not potentially pay as much as a traditional agency, but if you have free time when that product's available and you're not going to earn anything else, they're things to look at as well, and can be a way to kind of build up your experience, especially when you're starting out. And then we have social media. So I see a lot of linguists now with a social media profile. So on X, on Instagram, Facebook, kind of using it to kind of market themselves, but also to interact with other freelancers, different organizations, maybe posting blogs, things like that. So that's another kind of avenue as well. And sometimes they are paying for kind of advertising on social media. Again, if you're going to look into that, look at like what the costs are. Is the audience you're going to reach targeted? Is it worth it? But it's definitely something that you can look into. And then we also have obviously traditional things like business cards, which are great for kind of trade shows and being able to instantly give to someone so they can take away with them rather than having to get out a device, type in your email, whatever it is, or phone number. Then obviously there are all the different in-country professional associations. So in the UK, we have the ITI and the Chartered Institute of Linguists. Will have different options in terms of their membership levels, but they are maybe worth looking into because of the ROI of not just having a profile on their website, but all the other kind of things they offer. So professional advice in kind of setting up as a freelancer, being there as an advocate for the industry, workshop, things like that. So they're a really good example of considering the different kind of ROI, as I said. And then something else that I really want to emphasize considering is because as a linguist and working as a freelancer, you're working online, you're not restricted to only working with LSPs in the country that you're based. So there was someone in the chat before who was from Budapest, and they're logging into this session, even though it's originally kind of starting out in London. So it's a really good example of being able to like cross borders digitally and work with clients in different countries. So particularly like say if your language is French, you're not just stuck with kind of working with companies in the UK. You can look into companies in France, in Belgium, in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, in parts of Africa. And that's going to greatly expand kind of your potential market of clients and of work. And particularly if you're working into English, you're going to stand out in those countries because you're a native speaker of English, and there won't be so many of those in those countries. So again, that could be like a unique selling point for you over there. So when you are looking into potential clients, consider like 4 basic questions. So what, who, how, and where. So it's really important to do some kind of due diligence and look into like, okay, what is this client? What are they offering? What qualifications do they need? What's going on? Like, is there big news happening with their company or their industry? Who are their end clients? Where are they based? How do they want you to apply? And that's important for a couple of reasons. So making sure you're not wasting your time or theirs. Like if you are a kind of medical life sciences translator and this particular LSP predominantly focuses in legal and finance, they're probably not going to have really much to offer you. So are they the best agency to target? And also by researching, you can really kind of tailor the information that you're giving to them. So you always want to be kind of honest and upfront and realistic about your experience, your expertise. But if you are going to target maybe more of a specialized agency who are focused on 1 or 2 areas, you obviously want to maybe have a slightly different CV, different cover email, emphasize that information more in your application so they can see that expertise more easily, and maybe have a slightly different version of your CV if you're trying to emphasize your marketing translation experience, for example. So there's lots of different things that you can do to kind of just tailor. And once you've done that, once you've created your different CVs, that's a little bit of initial effort. But once it's done, it's then should be fairly easy to like keep those updated from kind of time to time, as your experience and your kind of portfolio grows there. And then on in terms of location, so these are kind of different snapshots from our website, um, but use clients' websites to see like where they have offices, because that's going to give you intel on like potentially what languages they will have greater needs in. So we have offices all over the world, but in South America, um, we have kind of strong presences in kind of Argentina and Brazil and some others. So we'll have a strong need for Spanish and Portuguese. So kind of using that information that will help you kind of target, um, and hopefully get more hits in those kind of speculative applications that you're making. So if you're dealing with someone like me, and a lot of agencies will have a vendor manager or linguistic resources coordinator, or whatever they might call it, and we're looking for various information. So we want clear, easy to read, but still informative CVs. And if a company's like us and they have an online web application, then we really want it to be fully completed, and see that someone's taken the time to give us that info. And the reason we do that is because the more kind of information that we can get up front, the easier it is for us to reach out more quickly and ask more pertinent questions and avoid kind of some of the back and forth. So someone just said, sorry, there's a gray box on the screen. Let me just retry sharing that. Hi, sorry, I had a bit of a technical crash there. The Zoom crashed. Can people see the screen now okay without the gray box? Great, perfect. Thanks for confirming. So I'll start again from slideshow. Um, so I'm not sure, I think it was a few minutes ago. Go back a couple of slides. So this is what I had on screen talking about the different marketing options, just so you can see that. And this recording will be available afterwards. So if you want to kind of go back and quickly just rewatch these sections, if you use a screenshot of what's on screen, please do that. So sorry for the tech issue. And then this was just about researching the different clients. So just looking at the different things on the websites, just to be able to see like the types of clients, what areas they're working in, and the locations and how you apply and all that good stuff there. And then going back to kind of the CV section now. So as I was saying, the reason we ideally want like a strong CV, a full application form, is we will normally have some kind of minimum experience requirement. And TransPerfect and a lot of LSPs will have ISO certifications. So these are industry standards that set out an absolute minimum criteria that we need for translation, for post editing, for interpreting, and things like that. So if you have a BA or an MA in translation, that is normally the absolute base minimum requirement. Um, so it's really important that we kind of have information like that, so we know if we can technically work with you or not. We also want to see like what projects you are most suitable for, where we can best place you. Maybe you're very experienced in one area, not so experienced in another. So we want to try you in the most experienced area first. And then once we've kind of built up that kind of working relationship with you, maybe then trying you on the area where you have less experience, because we are very much focused on trying to build our freelance pool and help them develop and have that kind of continued professional development, that's really important and kind of keeps our industry going. So with your online profiles, with your CVs, it's a balance. So particularly CVs, you don't want it to be too short or too long. So the two extreme examples I normally give when I'm giving kind of workshops like this, I do a lot of these in universities, um, is the two kind of polar extremes I had was I once had a CV that was literally one sentence, and all it said was, "I am a translator" in bright yellow font. And then on the other extreme, I once had a CV that was 96 pages, and it was every single project that person had ever done, um, which is kind of too much information to wade through. So it's really great to have maybe a separate document that is uh, kind of a portfolio of the different projects you've done, because again, there can be some things that may be a little bit more niche, and if we get a project that involves horse riding or something like that, being able to find that information is actually really useful, but not necessarily in your main CV, because 96 pages is too many to kind of go through quickly. Um, and if you have missing or unclear information, it can mean that your profile is potentially skipped over, particularly if we have a more urgent need. If stuff's missing on one CV or one application, but is on another, we're probably going to prioritize the one that does have that info, because otherwise we have to kind of reach out, ask more questions, which we will do when we need to. Obviously, sometimes it's quite time sensitive, and that could mean you missing out potentially on an opportunity. Um, and just consider, like, if you are going to have an online profile, even if it's free, make sure that it's useful. And if someone finds you, it has information that is going to make you stand out to them and want to contact you about collaborating with them. So this is my profile from Pros. It's I have kind of an employee profile because I work for an LSP. So there isn't really much info in the same way as a linguist, but this is just to be an illustration. So if I was coming to this and this was someone's freelance profile, and all it really said was translator French to English, and their list of expertise of just like medical, legal, finance, and no other information, it isn't really going to make that profile stand out versus someone that's uploaded their CV, has filled out their bio, has told me about their credentials, that they're a member of the ITI, that they have Trados and WordFast and all those other kind of good things. So definitely take the time to kind of build your CV and your profiles as fully as possible. So on your CV, and you may look at some of these things and be thinking, James, these things are really obvious, or some of these things are really obvious. But I've kind of put the most common mistakes. So I have seen at this point tens and tens and thousands of CVs, and you'd be surprised how many people don't put their contact information or put incorrect or outdated information because they've forgotten to go back and update their profile or their CV online. And you try and reach out to them, and that email is now defunct. So I then can't get hold of them. CVs or profiles with typos in them, no language pairs, it being unclear what your native language is. So particularly, it will depend on maybe the country where you've done your degree. But in some countries, it's quite common that you are trained to translate in both directions, but in a kind of practical, like LSP environment, we're normally more focused on working with people into their native language as much as possible, unless they're genuinely bilingual. So always be clear about what your actual native language is. Obviously, for interpreting, it's a little bit different because you are working in both directions. Think about the layout of your CV. So the 96-page example is very extreme, but if your CV is kind of a little bit all over the place and I have to like hop about between 3 pages and working out like how much experience you have in something, it makes it a little bit harder to see your overall kind of level of experience. So a good way to maybe think about it is if it was an old school printout and you had a highlighter and you were highlighting in your CV all the instances that showed like how much experience you had with legal translation, for example, would you just highlight one thing or would you have a bunch of different things that kind of stood out on the page? So that's normally how I think about it, like how much is popping out here to show like how experienced this person is. Because very often CVs are one page, which is fine. But it's very common on CVs and online profiles that people are putting, I am a translator, French to English, native English speaker, all great. I translate legal, marketing, medical, patents, technical, IT. So they're putting a bunch of different fields and that very high level like tag, so like medical, marketing, but not really expanding on like how much experience they have in those. So then it's difficult for us to see like actually how experienced they are, because you will have differing amounts of experience normally in the different subject matters. So you can expand by saying like how many years of experience you maybe have in a particular field, giving some examples of different document types within those areas. So you may not be able to name clients. You can't be too specific because of NDA reasons about the contents, but you can say without violating anything like I'm experienced with like contracts, arbitration, class action, court papers, etc. So just try and give some more concrete examples, particularly if you have been working with like more technical areas within the different subject matters, because that's going to kind of make you stand out more to prospective clients. Make sure you include your degree information. So if you do have a translation degree, that will make you stand out and will normally mean you qualify for most LSPs with kind of lower criteria. But also if you've maybe come a different route, so some people will come through the translation degree route, some people have maybe been working in different industries and done translation as a part of their job and then moved into freelance work. So if you have a law degree or a medical degree, some kind of science degree, and you have work experience in those industries, that's going to be really relevant if you're then applying to be a freelance legal translator and you have a law degree. That's something we want to know. So make sure that that kind of stuff is in there. Your experience with different services, so proofreading, post editing, formatting, DTP. If you're an interpreter, it all just helps give us kind of a global picture of your capability, and then your tech experience, and if you actually own those tools. So you may have been trained in WordFast, but you don't have a licensed kind of version on your laptop or on your PC, or if you do, then that's really good for us to know as well. So considering all these things, having it on your CV will definitely help you stand out. And then I've kind of put under the common mistakes of make sure you keep it updated online. So keep track of where you're posting information. So like I have a profile on Pros, LinkedIn, the Chartered Institute of Linguists, the ITI, Translators Cafe, and then keep a log of like when you last updated it. And you could maybe set yourself a little calendar reminder so that you get a reminder like every 6 months or once a year to update it. And especially at the beginning, like when you're starting out and you have less experience, it's really important to keep updating it regularly so that when people are looking for you, they're not finding your profile from 5 years ago when you were very junior and you didn't have much experience, and now you're actually a very tenured linguist and you have a lot of experience, but that doesn't show in your kind of like online profile. So definitely keep that in mind because as I said, like a lot of these resources are free and this is free marketing to kind of get yourself out there as a business and as a prospective linguist. So definitely kind of keep track of these things, and that will help um, get you more prospective contacts from LSPs. Um, so I'm now going to move on to the next part, which is just talking about different services that you may know about. Maybe have had some training in, but you've never worked in, or you've maybe never considered doing. So on screen, these are just some of the like the different services we work with as a company. They might not all be directly relevant, but this is just to show the scale of like different things where we need freelancers, particularly linguists. So things like SEO, app localization, subtitling and dubbing, transcription. Maybe if you did have that law background, litigation support, staffing. So we have a lot of staffing opportunities where there may be like short-term things for a few weeks where we need linguists, translators to go on site and do document review or translation. So there are lots of different things where you can expand your service offering, fill gaps in your time, and really exploit your skill set. So obviously, one, your translation skill set, but also as a translator, you have really strong research skills. So that can be really useful. You may well have some regulatory knowledge if you're specializing in things like legal, in patents, in life sciences. You have tech knowledge. So you're used to working with different tools. So can that be transferable to testing workflows for something else? And then very often there are things where you maybe don't need translation level ability, but where we need native speakers or people with foreign language skills for different reasons. So there's different things within your skill set that you can use beyond translation to also kind of look to offer to prospective clients. And especially when you're starting out, you may be getting something which in with an agency that for something that isn't translation, but once they've used you for that other service, they'll then be much more willing to be like, oh yeah, we use this person for an AI project and they were really great. They were very responsive. We love working with them. Oh, we have a translation opportunity now. Oh yeah, we should reach out to that person. So it can definitely kind of build word of mouth um, about you. So I'm going to go through some different things that you may not have considered. This is just like a higher level overview. So things you can maybe look into further, like online, in terms of like what they are, training, things like that. But I just kind of wanted to put some suggestions out there today. So one is definitely be open to training in new subject matters. So as I said, like I've been in the industry over 15 years. When I started, social media was just really coming out, like Facebook was new. People were only just getting the first smartphones. So obviously now there are areas of work that we consider have been around for a while, but are new in my time in the industry. So things like translating apps, video gaming has exploded, social media, community management, so monitoring kind of brands, social media presence in different languages, Recently, cryptocurrency is a newer area, AI. So new things, that's one of the great things about the translation industry is because it's focused on what's happening in the world and the world is developing, then there are new areas of work that are periodically coming up. So definitely be open to uh, if you're offered like training opportunities, free or otherwise. So for example, we offered a cryptocurrency training earlier in the year because it was a new area of work and we realized that people maybe hadn't worked in it yet, but would be interested in getting that training. Um, if you do take part in things like this, once you've done that training, make sure you're updating your LSPs that you work with. And as I said, your online CVs and profiles, 'cause it's really great to take the training, but then if nobody knows, it's not necessarily going to help you get any kind of further work. But if you kind of put that online, then it's definitely going to mean you come up in more searches for prospective clients. So something you may or may not be aware of is sworn translation. So it doesn't exist in every country, so especially English-speaking ones. So like in the UK, the US, like we don't have it. But in a lot of Europe, Latin America, South Africa, some parts of Asia, they do have this system of sworn translation. Um, where they are legally kind of enabled to be able to stamp and swear their own translations so they can be used for legal purposes. So, for example, if you were getting married abroad, which my brother did in Ecuador, he had to get his birth certificate, passport, other things translated by a sworn translator so they could be accepted by the authorities there. So if you have a language like French or German or Spanish where there is a sworn translation system in those countries, it's worth looking into like, can you be a sworn translator or not? So sometimes there might be requirements to be a citizen or resident of the country. And the entrance criteria do vary depending on the country, but it's definitely something that's worth looking into because if you do get that sworn status, it's a small pool of sworn linguists out there. And if we need a sworn translator for France, we can only use a sworn translator for France. We can't use a different translator. So we don't have as many options. So you will definitely stand out if you do offer that service. So that's definitely something to look into. So something else that may help you kind of access more work, because again, there's a smaller pool of available linguists, is if you're offered an opportunity to work with a client who requires a background check or a security clearance, that's definitely something to consider. So some kind of high-end clients for like finance, tech, government will maybe have a requirement because of the sensitivity of their material that all the linguists, all the employees who touch that material in any way have a background check. And for governments, there may be need for security clearance. There's normally not a charge for that. The LSP or the end client will pay that for you, but you would be required to provide kind of proof of identity and address normally in a secure online environment. So if you were doing that for us, for example, we wouldn't see any of your kind of private documentation. We would just initiate the check with a background check company that we use. They tell you what you need to do. They just tell us the outcome of the check and it's all clear. Luckily, I've never had anyone who hasn't passed a background check, but that will come back clear and we will then list that in our database so we can use you on any and all clients who require that. So again, it can be a way to expand kind of the pool of available clients to you. That isn't going to be for everybody. Some people might not feel comfortable doing that kind of check just because they're worried about their kind of personal data or they think it's maybe like one step too far, and that's absolutely fine. Like as a freelancer, you are free to kind of do things or not. But if you are willing to do it, it can expand your work. And if you've already been background checked, for a different direct client or LSP, again, that's definitely something to put on your kind of CV and online profiles, because again, it's going to make you stand out, particularly if a client's looking for someone who's willing to do that. To definitely consider that. Accessibility. So this is really a growing area. So there are three different types of accessibility here on screen. So closed captioning. So this is subtitles for the deaf or hard of hearing, transcribing the different kind of dialogue, sound effects, musical cues, or other audio information. So this is a little bit different to standard subtitles. So it's giving that extra kind of audio information, and they are optional. So very often now you will see on web videos the little CC symbol, and you can turn them on or off, so they're optional. And they're only transcribing the audio information, whereas subtitles for the deaf or hard of hearing have both the audio transcription, but then also the subtitles of the dialogue themselves. And then finally, we have audio description. So this is describing the visual content on screen for blind and low vision viewers. So obviously, you may be able to hear the dialogue, but you can miss out a lot of what's actually happening because you can't see the action on screen. So it's to give that wider context and give kind of full access to programs. So I do have a little example video, which I will try and play in a second. Just before I do that, this type of work is kind of really growing at the minute. So there are increasing regulatory requirements about having kind of accessible websites, online videos, entertainment content. And as I said, like if you go on YouTube, you will very often see videos have the options for captioning, for audio description. And a lot of streamers and clients are going back and making their historic content accessible. So like Netflix, like the BBC. So the BBC, for example, now have just gone and added audio description and captioning to all their 60-year-old catalogue of Doctor Who, which is thousands of hours of content. So there's kind of a large amount of work in the entertainment space as well. So just we'll now try and show this video just to give you a taste of audio description, so you can just see the difference from a normal video. So that was just an example there of the audio description, kind of giving that wider context there. So uh, these accessibility services, you may, if you studied subtitling within the past few years, have done some training on these, but maybe you've never worked. So it's definitely something to look into, or look into doing a workshop, getting training. if you have kind of translation and particularly subtitling experience, um, this is definitely going to be something that's kind of more accessible to you if you're used to working with time codes, used to watching video content anyway, if you're doing subtitling. So it's definitely like an area to consider. And it's also a nice area because you're really kind of adding value back into the community and doing something that's really important, making content accessible to everyone, which I think is kind of a really nice kind of added thing about this as well, and something that I've enjoyed being part of it. Um, so other things you might consider, so particularly if you do interpreting, you're going to be a good kind of public speaker because you have to do that on a regular basis. But even if not, something that you might not have considered is doing kind of voiceover work. So now a lot of voiceover artists are working from a home studio, uh, which can be kind of a lower startup cost. So obviously there are different levels of equipment you can buy. So we say on average for like a basic setup, it's probably around £170. But obviously you can go kind of above and beyond that depending on the level of equipment you get. But just to give an idea, um, and this is kind of example, a picture of one of our people with a home setup. And obviously, if you are going to do that, you think about, do you have somewhere quiet within your kind of flat or house where you could do that that isn't getting the noise from the the main road or the dog barking or the cat meowing or whatever it might be. But again, there are growing amounts of kind of video and audio content, both in terms of TV stuff, podcasts, ads for podcasts, like audiobooks, like meditation, gaming, the traditional kind of corporate narration and documentaries in e-learning and stuff that's been around for ages, and also kind of localizing social media stuff. So doing voiceover and dubbing for that. So again, another great area to consider. Transcription. So again, if you have a translation and subtitling background, particularly subtitling, as you're used to the time coding in the video audio content already, transcription is another great thing to consider kind of adding to your services. So transcribing new video audio content, so subtitles, on-screen text, time coding, and that can be time coding existing scripts as well, back to audio, quality control, so proofreading effectively, and checking the time coding of existing scripts, creating the end subtitling file. And then some clients for like very urgent needs ask for something we call transcription on the fly. So particularly like if they've had like a big live event where they're demoing products, and they've had like an online stream, they want to be able to get that out there online in other languages very quickly. So being able to like listen to the audio and transcribe that directly into the other language, without having to transcribe and then translate first, is a service that's kind of growing at the minute as well. And finally, AI. So AI is a growing area. It's something I know that's been like very prevalent in the news in the kind of the past 6 to 12 months. So this is kind of different areas where you can kind of supplement your traditional kind of linguists projects. So it could be data sourcing. So kind of some examples here of like training voice recognition software. So that could be for something like a sat nav, which is one of the examples on screen. Maybe taking part in user studies, so either in-person panels or remote studies where you're kind of testing workflows or products and providing feedback. And again, this is where it kind of ties back into the transferable skills I mentioned earlier of you're used to working with translation tech probably. So you have an idea of like when updates roll out and you're maybe providing feedback to PM. So this is something where you maybe don't need language skills, but you do know what it's like if tech doesn't work properly or if it does, and kind of communicating that feedback. Data annotation, so training AI to recognize different objects or turns of phrase. And there are various different like job opportunities. So they could be full-time, which you might not be looking for, or they could be kind of full-time but temporary and remote. So there's various different things out there where clients need people for so many hours for a number of weeks or a number of months. So again, it could be a way to kind of top up your income there, or like build your experience in different areas. So maybe if you're starting out in transcription, doing a short-term temporary thing, but then getting that kind of those weeks of experience, and then making your life easier when you're kind of freelancing in that area as well, and kind of adding that experience there. So as I said, like these are just very high level overviews. Definitely like look into researching these online, look into different LSPs, see what they offer. But I do know like a lot of, particularly like the AI stuff is very prevalent now, and kind of growing more and more. So kind of do your due diligence and kind of see what is out there. So I hope this has been useful, and just giving you a taste of kind of some of the things that are out there. Let's just have a look at the questions that have been coming in. Okay, so if you're applying online and their website asks you to upload your CV, do agencies also expect a cover letter or just the CV? So it is optional. So if you're doing an application form, you're probably putting in all the information they need plus your CV, so that's probably enough. The only time maybe you want to add in a cover letter as well, as a front page to your CV, is maybe there's some information you want to clarify, and it wouldn't be obvious from their application or your CV, so you maybe want to add that in. But otherwise, not having a cover letter is fine. And chat, do we have any other questions? So can you provide exact details of the equipment required for voiceover and interpretation work? So I put my email in the chat. If you want to drop me an email, I can send you over some details. So we have some basic guidelines of like the basic specs you would need for like a microphone, and all that good stuff. So you can kind of look into options in terms of costs. So yeah, if you drop me an email, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, I can just put you in my email now. So question here about how long CV should be, like 2 pages maximum. Like I would say yes. Like two pages is fine. As I said, like if you have additional, like a list of like different types of projects that you've done, that's fine. You can just send that as a different document, and then the LSP can refer to that kind of as they wish. So it can be useful to have extra info, as I said, but kind of separate from your CV. Does anyone have any other questions? I think that's it. No. Okay, well, thank you very much for reaching out and with your questions, and for attending the workshop today. And do get in touch if you have any other questions via my email. I'm really happy to hear from you, and enjoy the rest of the language show. Thanks, everyone.